Hello and welcome to episode 59 of the Good Guy podcast with me, Vittorio Angelone. If you are brand new, hello, welcome. I hope you're keeping well. Uh, I'll do a little intro, plug a little bit of plugging before we get kicked off into the episode because I'm aware that we might have a lot of new ears and eyes this week. And normally the Monday podcast is a solo podcast, but I feel like I felt a sense of urgency, and I also felt like the plan. So I go through the week and plan the episode for the solo podcast on the Monday as thoughts come into my head, and I really felt like a lot of the thoughts that I had planned to talk about were spoken about in this episode with the guest Toheeb, and I felt like number one, I would be repeating myself if I did it separately to a solo podcast, and number two, I think it came across better as a conversation where two people were kind of asking each other questions. And I was really proud of this episode. I think I've just had the conversation. I'm really pleased with how it went. And thanks so much to Taheeb for coming on and chatting to me and having kind of an in-depth discussion of what's going on. And uh, there's really no moments of shite in this podcast, which is very rare. But anyway, I'll crack on with the plugs. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at Vittorio Angelone, VITTORIOANGELONE, whatever you're consuming this on, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes will have my name somewhere written there. So follow that. Subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe on Spotify, iTunes. Drop a little 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps boost this episode in particular into people's feeds and suggested episodes. And I think that would be really good. Because I think it's really good. So drop 5-star, drop a little message in there to say, tell me what you thought of it. And if you have any thoughts on the podcast, I really, really, really encourage people to just send me a message and be like, oh, I thought this, I thought you didn't ask these questions, I think you're a big, massive racist. That would be good. Um, um, what else to plug? If you're a regular listener of the podcast and a regular consumer of my things, maybe after following me or whatever, um, I am a financially crippled artist. Hello, I'm sure most of you are as well if you're joining to talk about drama skills. If you want to support me for as little as £1 a month, jump on patreon.com/Vittorio Angelone. I've lost all my live gigs. I'm a comedian, amongst other things. So I've kind of trying to recoup some of my earnings. And I'm putting out a lot of stuff at the minute. I'm putting out sketches, stand-up clips, podcasts, putting out 4 podcasts a week. So if you feel like dropping me £12 a year, 2 pints a year, do you reckon you could do that for me? That would be nice. That would be really appreciated. If you can't, don't worry. I'll plug my other podcast, Doing Bits, which is where we get comedians on, top really fucking amazing comedians. I'm really pleased with the guests we've got on there so far and lined up in the future. We get really amazing comedians on to kind of talk about lockdown and run through new material and brand new jokes that are kind of knocking about in our brains that we're not allowed to tell in front of people. So it's a really real insight. And it came up in this podcast with Taheeb where we spoke about the value of comedy and social commentary through comedy and making it accessible to people. And I think Doing Bits is a real insight into how comedians work out how to phrase ideas in palatable and humorous ways that might be quite difficult and a bit of a minefield. So as not to represent anything wrong or get anything wrong, but still make it funny, and it's this whole thing. So I would recommend Doing Bits. That's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It goes out live on YouTube at 7:30, but is also available as a podcast. So wherever you're consuming this, just type in Doing Bits with me, Vittorio Angelone, and you'll crack onto it. That seems like enough of an intro for you guys. I hope you really enjoy the podcast with Toheeb Jimoh, and give it up for Taheeb.
Woo! Woo! Yeah! Fuck yeah!
How's it going? So to kick off, I mean, I'll introduce you at the start, but for people who don't know you who are listening, well, just introduce yourself. If someone was listening for the first time and didn't know who you were, how would you introduce yourself?
My name is Toheeb Jimoh. I'm an actor. I trained at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama.
Gang, gang.
Yeah, gang. and yeah.
That's it.
That's my
Yeah,
introduction.
that's it.
That's my introduction. I'm
Very
an actor.
simple. That's good. I think some people get really bogged down in like they have 27 different titles for themselves. They're like, I'm an
Yeah.
actor, a poet, a writer, an activist, and you're like, you're an actor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. It gets long. I'm Nigerian. I lived in Nigeria. I came to London, and now I'm in Brixton, and I'm living with my parent. It's just a lot. It's a lot of stuff. I'm Toheeb. I'm an actor. I'm all of those things that I just mentioned.
yeah,
But yeah, oh shit. But yeah, I'm an actor.
that's two Nigerians in a row on the podcast.
Yeah, I watched the other one as well. Actually, that guy was jokes.
He's funny,
He was
man. He's a
so
cool
funny,
guy. He's a cool
so
guy.
funny, so funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
He's
was a really
funny.
dope podcast.
So how long did you live in Nigeria for?
Actually, I can't. I was really young when I went, so I was
Yeah.
born here, and then at some point, me and my brother went to Nigeria, and then I came back here when I was 7. So I probably went when I was like 1 or 2 or something. So
Yeah.
maybe like 6 years.
Cool.
So like my earliest memories are in Nigeria. Like I went to school there and stuff, and then came over here, um, and I started year 3 in London in primary school.
Okay, so that's what, 8 or 9 years old, seven or eight, something like
Seven,
that.
seven, 7 or 8, yeah, something like that. I think.
Because ours are slightly different because we don't have reception here, so we
Oh
just
really?
start like primary one, primary
Oh
two,
shit!
primary three, primary
Straight
two.
in, fucking hell.
So year 8 is when we moved to secondary school.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
So
yeah.
it's
That's why. Yeah, yeah. Because sometimes, I can't remember who it was, but you get students who come over and they start drama school when they're 17 instead of
that's
18.
Scotland. That's
Yeah, yeah.
Scotland. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah, yeah.
Scotland. Yeah, yeah,
They're fucking mental.
yeah, yeah.
I remember when I used to work at the SU bar at Guildhall, for every year at the start of freshers, it was always like there was Scotland, and then occasionally there would be like a Chinese student, something to do with their like school system, and we would
Yeah.
have to have like photos of them behind the bar because it's like
Oh,
an
really?
SU space. They have to be allowed into the space,
But they can't drink.
but we always had to like my mate, Luke Maher.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He was 17 when he arrived.
That's weird, man. I
Yeah,
can't
we had to
imagine being
like
at drama school
sneak
at
him.
17.
We had to sneak him pints and stuff.
Are you really gonna say that on the podcast there? That's
I'm sorry
incriminating
if
yourself,
if
Victoria.
if.
I hope the police see this.
imagine right now the police made it a priority to come for, for buying
Come
my
and harass you.
7-year-old friend drinks five
I
years
wouldn't be
ago.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Guildhall. Guildhall's a weird place, man. Guildhall's a weird.
For
Drama school's a weird place.
for sure. What was your? Because I've a lot of opinions on Guildhall, and I have such a weird perspective on Guildhall because I came through as a musician,
Yeah,
but was always very connected through friendships to the acting department,
yeah,
and and studying at Guildhall as a musician kind of sparked my interest in theatre and acting to the point where I auditioned for Guildhall for the drama school
yeah, yeah, yeah. You said.
2 years in a row, and I was like, so I have this really weird perception of it where I like kind of exist in both worlds in very strange ways. Like I don't pretend to know a lot about the drama department, but I would definitely say that I know more about it than 99% of musicians
Yeah,
who
yeah.
were there. And also from being like vice president of the SU for 2 years,
Oh yeah.
that gives you like an insight
Oh
into like
yeah.
the inner workings of the place,
Yeah. Oh
which
wow.
is.
So you've really you've jumped about.
I also did a shift in the finance department once.
What?
There's not a job at Guildhall that I haven't done. Okay. There was
Bro.
something they just needed some super boring admin done. And I was like the whole way through Guildhall I had like 3 jobs. Like the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I was like, extra money, yeah, I'll do it. So I
Yeah.
went in, just went up to their office and they were like, okay, so this is a ring binder full of receipts and you just need to type those numbers into the spreadsheet. And I
I
did
couldn't
that
do that.
from like 9 till 5, and it has so inspired me to never have an office job ever.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that, bro. That's weird. Like I can't. Like I hate numbers to begin with anyway. Like anything to do with like maths or
Yeah,
accounting or
yeah.
bro, that would be the worst thing ever. I
I
think
was
that could be
so.
one of the worst jobs you could ever ask me to do. Just sit down and type numbers into a spreadsheet.
It was
No, thank
so
you.
bad. And do you know what? I forgot my headphones that day, so I couldn't
Yeah.
even listen to music. So I was just
Oh,
sat in this
dude.
office doing the work and looking around at all the people at the desk, being like, "This is what you do all day."
Bro, that's so depressing. Like just listening to your fingers like typing numbers in. That's the worst thing. Like, have you ever been like on a walk, like on your way somewhere, and then you break your headphones and you're just hearing your own footsteps, like walking?
And
It's the most
mate,
depressed thing ever.
it's so mad that we as a generation are so uncomfortable with our own thoughts
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we are just constantly consuming something to block out the bad voices. Do you know what I
Dude.
mean?
It's getting dark. It's getting dark. It's getting dark.
So what
Um,
was your, because there's been a lot of talk about drama schools for a long time, but it's
yeah,
it's what I think the current climate of surrounding the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement has kind of, it's this interesting phenomenon where people are talking about it in really broad brushstrokes. But what's been interesting to me is these little illuminations of really specific experiences of people that are like shared experiences by a lot of people, but it's within these specific specificities because it's such a complex system. And that's why
yeah,
people say systemic racism, because
yeah,
it's so complex and so many tiny little details that you have to highlight to address it properly,
yeah,
that to paint over it with a broad brushstroke is kind of doing it a disservice. So I think drama schools has been one of the ones where a lot of people have already been talking about it, similar to the broader Black Lives Matter movement. The kind of institutional issues within drama schools have been highlighted as a part of this.
yeah. I think it's hard not to get overwhelmed by the bigger conversation about racism and systemic racism, and like that's where I found my first like week when all of this stuff was popping off, and when the video came out and when the murder happened, it's like you're just kind of overwhelmed by how deep like how deep racism runs in the fabric of societies, and and then you just feel like, well, there's nothing I can do. Like I'm just one very
Yes.
inconsequential black kid who feels a lot of stuff and can't do anything to change it, because we're talking about politics, we're talking about government, and though you like you can vote and you can fund organizations and you can protest and you can speak out, you can do that, but it's a much bigger problem to solve, that people have been trying to solve for years and years and years
Yeah.
and years and years. So then when you think about drama school, you're like, okay, this is a much smaller instance. This is like a microcosm for
Yeah.
life, drama school. And so if I'm like, if I can help and solve the problem of institutionalized racism in drama school, then I can go on and try and
If
solve the rest
and
of the problems of
and
the world.
if everyone does that within their workplace and within their field,
Yeah,
we'll have made collectively made a very large step towards
exactly,
improvement.
exactly. It's like just fighting loads of little small fights and
That's
then winning the
exactly
war
what it is.
because of
Yeah.
it. And so yeah, because drama schools, yeah, like it's funny the parallels between drama schools and politics.
Hmm.
It is just a institution that is not prepared to accommodate black students, as
Hmm.
far as I'm concerned. And being a black student going to a drama school, any drama school, a lot of the drama schools in London, you just feel like, okay, cool, this place isn't made for people like me, and it can't really accommodate people like me, isn't like prepared to do so. And um and so then it's funny, like loads of students come out of drama school, loads of black students come out of drama school and just have like jokes, funny stories to tell of times where like a teacher was racially biased or they were put down, or like something very insensitive happened and nobody spoke out on their behalf and they had no
Yeah.
one to speak to. And it's messed up, man. Like you're forced to somehow take this training that you've come in and paid your money for and try and absorb it, but also try and solve this school's problems at the same time.
I've
And it's
heard
like that's not
this. I've heard this phrase that really stuck with me, that you as a black student at a drama school, you arrive as an actor and leave as an activist. It's like
Yeah,
you're
one
forced
hundred
into this
percent.
position of fighting the good fight when you
Yeah,
really just want to learn your craft.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
and I think that's why it's terrifying. Like that's why it's really scary because you're a lot of the time you come in as an 18-year-old and you're in my year group, I was one of four non-white students,
Hmm.
so four of us in total. And you're in a year of 26, and you've worked super hard to get this place. You've auditioned amongst other black students, knowing that only few of you will get in. Like you are direct competition for each other because the school is not going to let in more than four of you or five of you
For
or
sure,
whatever.
definitely. I think we, like the kind of year groups that we were existing in, were definitely. I think now there's been big movements made with the open door people and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of stuff. But definitely, I remember thinking that at the time of being there, there was just this understanding that, oh yeah, there's two black actors in every year,
yeah,
and you're just like,
100%.
why is that a thing?
It's ridiculous. It's
It's just
ridiculous. But
mad.
then you kind of accept it because
Yeah.
again, you're a young 18-year-old kid who just wants to be an actor. Who just wants to has already worked so hard beating off thousands of people to find, one place
Mm.
in 26. So like you're already like questioning that, but you don't want to fight that fight because you just want to be an actor and it's already
Yeah.
hard enough to do that.
Yeah.
And so you go in and then before you know it, you're just slowly drip fed all of these ideas that make you feel small and make you feel not accepted and unseen. And it's just really traumatic. Like it gets to a point where it starts to affect your mental, detrimental to your mental health. And and so now we're in a place where it's like, okay, cool. How do you combat that? How do you
Mm.
fight it? And we're in a situation now where, especially with Guildhall, like people are being responsive and people are listening and people are trying to make these changes happen. But we're not going to sit here and pat you on the back for finally doing something about
Mm.
an issue that you've been reminded of for years and years and years. Like it's not just our generation that's been speaking about this. You've had the Michaela Coles and the Papa dudes and the years and years before them who have constantly told you that there is a problem at the school.
Hmm.
And so yeah, sorry, I'm just rambling. It's just a lot. It's a lot to think about and it's a lot to
I'll,
process.
that's why I'm here. Like we can, you know, we can like we because I find this problem, and this is why I
Yeah,
like having conversations where, like, when you just try and think about stuff, like your brain moves too fast and goes on too many tangents too quickly, so you
yeah,
can't even process what you think about something. So
yeah,
the best way I find is to like talk it back and forward with someone, so someone can keep you on a certain track for a certain amount of time and go, okay, we've addressed that bit. What about this bit? What about this bit? What about
yeah.
this bit?
Let's take it slowly and let's talk about it like piece
And
by
do
piece.
you think you and this? I'll tell you kind of my personal experience. Do you think you arrived at Guildhall with a sense of, this is going to be a weird environment for me? Because I arrived with a really profound sense of, these people are all going to be very, very wealthy English people. And
Yeah.
I arrived with a thought of, this is going to be an uphill battle for me, like
Um.
immediately before I came in.
So I went to school. The schools that I went to before I went to Guildhall, like I wasn't in the minority. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was surrounded by other black students. That was the thing. And so when I decided to go to drama school, I knew that I knew what the idea was around drama schools. Like it was usually this, like they were posh, upper middle class. Like that's who they were for. They were for like posh
Yeah.
white kids. And so even auditioning to drama school, like there's already a battle that you have to fight straight away of going, I'm not a posh white kid. And
Yeah.
so am I going to get in? It's going to be so much harder for me to get in. There's only one space for me at the school. There's only one space for someone who looks like me at the school. And so immediately you've got all of that in your head. But then when you do get in, I feel like you're at a point where you're young and you're so excited to be there that you're not even thinking about it. Like you're just
Mm.
you're I went in just trying to get the best I could out of the training. I just wanted to be diligent and be focused and work my ass off and become a better actor. Um, and but then you of course you're aware of it because you walk in on the first day and all
Yeah.
your teachers are white, a majority of the students are white, and there's like two or three black around you, and the only black people that are employed by the school are like cleaners or security guards, and that's not to diss
Yeah.
cleaners or security guards, but like that's just it. Like, that's what you're presented with, and so you're aware of it, but you're also just trying to park it because you just want to get the best you can out of the training. But then as you go through the training, you're just like slowly reminded every day that you're black, and so you're different. And so, like, they're just like really insensitive things that are said to you, like on a almost daily basis. You're being called the name of a student that graduated 5 years ago. You're
Mm.
being called the name of a student that's a year above you. You're being told you should be speaking differently to how you speak. You're being told that if you do that, your chances of succeeding in the industry are better. But all the while, you're still a 18-year-old boy who's kind of scared to fight the fight because you don't
Yeah.
really know why it's happening. It's never really happened to you before. Like, I've never had to deal with systemic racism because all the systems that I've been a part of, like, I wasn't in the minority there. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So so no, you're not. I don't think I was prepared in the same way you were. I wasn't coming in thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to fight the good fight. I
Mm.
was thinking, yeah, it's weird. Like, this is the situation that we're in, but if I just go, I was like a bit optimistic and naively. I went in just thinking, if I go in and just try and get the best I can out of the training and be a good actor, then it'll be what it is. Like,
It's
just
almost,
because,
it's that balance between like the there's this phrase that the best form of activism is success, to just go
yeah,
in and be incredible and be
yeah, yeah, yeah,
undeniable so
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everyone
yeah,
goes, oh well, I was wrong about all black people because but then they just
yeah,
hold you up as this token of like, and
yeah,
it's always this conversation that comes up in America as well where people go, well, what about Oprah? Oprah's rich. And it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
and it's like, no,
If
you're
Oprah could do it, you could do it.
exactly
Yeah, it's like,
like that whole
oh
thing
man.
is just fucking, it's
Yeah,
very
but like that's also what you think when you're at drama school. Like,
mm,
I feel like students either go one of two ways, where they go, all right, I'm just gonna keep my head down. I'm gonna try and get the best I can out of this. I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna be super successful, and then I can make change. And then there are other students who spend their entire time at the school fighting the fight because they just can't, they
yeah,
can't abide it,
yeah,
and it affects your training. Either way, it affects your training.
yeah.
It affects what you like. You ask this school for a service and you pay for this service, and you don't really get, you get the service, but you also get a side helping of trauma and a little bit of racial abuse, and that's not what you paid for. And you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to choose
Whether
between
you're
being
paying
silent.
for it, whether you're paying for it or not.
Yeah, but yeah, like, whether you're paying for it or not, but you just shouldn't have to choose between good drama training and you know racial insensitivity, because that's not what your white counterparts are getting. And you shouldn't have to decide whether or not to be an activist, and you shouldn't feel guilty about not fighting, not speaking up. You shouldn't have to feel guilty about that, and you shouldn't have to have the burden of speaking up. You shouldn't have to call your teachers and hold your teachers accountable. You shouldn't have to do that. You should just go there and train and be
That's
a
a
good
point
actor.
as well where I think a real struggle that I've heard people speak about is this idea. And my friend who's it applies, it's not exactly the same, but it applies. My friend Victor is Romanian, and he came over as an adult, and he's a comedian, and he has this joke where
Yeah.
he says, oh, I moved to London and found out that I'm a Romanian guy. I used I used to just be a guy, but
Yeah.
now I'm a Romanian guy. So it's almost like
Yeah.
with you growing up in largely kind of like black schools, you
Yeah.
come into this very literally white building and
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
in and 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 you're now a black guy. You've never
Yeah.
been a black guy before in your life,
Yeah.
but you
I mean, I
now,
have with the police, but like,
yes,
it's,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's
You
like
now
you're
have to
just,
speak on behalf of your entire race,
yeah,
which is an unholy burden for an 18-year-old.
it's mad. It's mad. It's mad. It's mad. And I think that's kind of what's interesting about this new wave of the Black Lives Matter movement, is that there are so many white people now who are on board and who
Mm,
have found their voice and who want to be allies and who want to be vocal in that. And part of the problem, that I had at drama school, is that you're expected to be the person who speaks out. You're the one who it affects, and so therefore the 1 in 4 out of 26 is now the person who has to mount the fight and fight because you're the one who it affects. And so it's hard not to feel outnumbered in a situation like that.
for sure.
And
And it's not, it's not necessarily to pin blame on your classmates, because they're 18 and they're scared and they don't want to upset the system. It doesn't directly affect them, but it would take a lot for them to speak out in the same way that it takes a lot for you to speak out. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but then we also get into a conversation of like who's benefiting
Yeah,
from like the system that we have at the moment, and if you're in a position where you benefit from it, then I think you should, like, there should be a burden on you to speak out. And I understand, like, yeah, you're right, like these, like, I'm not saying any of my classmates were bad people because they didn't rush to my defense, but that's the situation. Something happens that shouldn't happen, and for some reason the person who is affected is expected to the fight mainly by themselves,
yeah,
and it's just, I think that's one thing that's changing, and that's one thing that is a positive. Like, I mean, the whole movement is positive, but that's one thing that I think is the difference between now and 2015, for instance, is that I've got so many of my white friends now who are like, I should have spoken up when this happened. I will speak up in the future when this happens, and I'm there. Like, I'm not just going to witness it and feel a bit cringy and just like be quiet because it's a bit
mm,
awkward and nobody knows what's going on in the room. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to use my voice and I'm going to use my privilege, because you are in a position of privilege, and you shouldn't expect the person who isn't in a position of privilege to come forward and fight the fight. And so I think that's one good thing, you know.
for sure. And we spoke a little bit before the podcast, and we should probably hash through the conversation a little bit again, just about this sense of, it's a very understandable sense of people who have been shouting Black Lives Matter for years and speaking up
Yeah,
against racism for years, and seeing all these
yeah,
people arrive and understandably being like, well, where the fuck have you been?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
the
yeah,
fuck have you been doing? But
yeah,
I was having a chat with a friend about this recently, where she kind of posted something being like, what, like, all these people educating themselves now, why weren't you educated before? And it's like, look, that is a valid question, but it is not a useful question right now. I think you don't want to alienate people who have just arrived. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. You don't. I don't. Yeah, you definitely don't. But like, people are frustrated. People
Mm,
are angry. This
mm.
has been like, this is years coming, and so like, I understand it, and I get it. I get where it comes. You're right. Like, you don't want to alienate people, and you don't. We don't gain anything moving forward from just like throwing our anger in the face of people who want to help. But I completely understand where that's coming from, and I
For
completely
sure.
understand people in any way just like reacting and going, "Yo, like, this is frustrating," because it's hard. It's weird when you see all of these companies, some of whom have had instances where, like, they've like printed, like, they've every like, so many of these companies have had issues with race and they've been called out for it, and then
Mm.
now, like, even like the NFL, for instance, who were like, they massively like marginalized people like Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the national anthem, and then now, like, they're coming forward and being like, "Oh, yo, yeah, we understand that we were wrong, and that we now support the Black Lives Matter movement." Like, there are so many companies and people that you're just like, it's hard to, it's like virtue signaling or not,
I
and
think I think
you have to.
the interesting thing with the NFL is they had a different tact, where a lot of people, a lot of big corporations and big companies came forward and were just like, Black Lives Matter, I guess. And then, but what was positive, I think, like, because you had fucking, I swear to God, it was up briefly and I think they took it down. I swear L'Oreal posted Black Lives Matter because you're worth it. And that is just fucking crazy. And
No,
no,
no, that, like, it's
maybe
just,
it was a spoof, but right. That's kind of the sentiment, where it's just like, oh, but there's no acknowledgement of previous
yeah, yeah,
indiscretions. What was
yeah,
good
yeah,
about what the NFL did was they apologized, and they have more work to do, but it was
yeah,
good to acknowledge their previous indiscretions, because a lot of companies I've seen come forward and be like, Black Lives Matter, and then you have people going, yo, you fucking fired me for
yeah, yeah,
speaking
yeah,
out
yeah,
against
yeah,
this years
yeah, yeah,
ago. Do
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. I think I think that's where the frustration comes from, is that, like, we've been fighting this fight for years, and it's hard not to feel like people are jumping on the bandwagon because, like, now you're on the right side of history if you're supporting the Black Lives Matter
Mm-hmm.
movement. And so So there is frustration there, and there are people who are just virtue signaling. There are
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who
yeah,
are
hundred
just
percent.
saying it's good PR and they want to be on the right side of history. But like now is not the time to like alienate people. Like that's kind of what this whole thing is about. And so like even if you are frustrated, like I would urge people to put their frustrations into actually, be frustrated, do whatever you want to do. Like I'm not going to tell you how to channel that. But like you're right, like I wouldn't want to alienate people. I wouldn't want to make people, because
Yeah.
like people will feel like, a lot of people are at the moment feeling like they don't want to speak out because they might get something wrong, or they don't want the backlash, and so it's stopping people from supporting the movement, which is counterproductive.
It's
And
this
so
it's this weird thing where the left and the kind of more woke, whatever you deem that word to mean, have spent the past 5 to 10 years canceling people for getting
mm,
things slightly wrong, and now they're like, why don't you come on board and support this? And everyone is kind of like, because I'm terrified of you canceling me for getting this slightly wrong. And the thing I've landed on is I'd rather be wrong and be corrected than be silently wrong, because
100%.
that's how you learn.
It is all you learn. But I'm also like, in that situation, educate yourself, and
Yeah.
like read books, like look at the posts, watch movies, listen to music, like, do whatever you need to do to inform yourself to the point where maybe you won't make a mistake. And if your heart is in the right place, then you're not um even if you do say something that's maybe a bit ignorant or maybe a bit insensitive, like you will learn. Somebody will pull you up on it. And if your heart is in the right place, you will change and you will just continue to support the movement. And so I wouldn't if your fear is you're going to get cancelled and you're scared about that, I think I would hope that your willingness to support a movement like
Mm.
this overrides your fear of being cancelled. Um, which, because it's a valid fear, like I completely understand it, but I would say,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
try
a
and
hard
learn as much as you can, and
it's a
then
hard argument to hold up, to be like, I'm scared of being cancelled, when John Boyega is screaming into a megaphone that he might not work ever again. Do you know what I mean?
I'm yeah, like I think there's also a part of me that's kind of like, now is not the time for like your problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like,
there's bigger fish to fry.
I don't care if you get cancelled.
I really couldn't care less. Like honestly, like I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. But like you're right. You're right, because it is a problem. And even if I don't feel like it should be a problem, it is a problem. Like people are not
Yes.
going to speak out because they are scared they're going to get something wrong, and suddenly like the whole thing's going to be on their head. But there is a much bigger problem
Yeah.
afoot. Like this is a movement. This is a civil rights movement, and so your fear of how you should be protesting or what you should be doing, like nobody's going to cancel you for giving money to support funds that are bailing
Yeah.
people out, or to support, like no one's gonna cancel you for that. No one's going to cancel you for posting posts that your black friends are posting.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to cancel you for going to a protest. Nobody's going to cancel you for reading Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. No one's going to cancel you for that. Like there are things you can do. Like the idea of, oh, I'm just going to sit this one out because I don't really know how to do it. I don't get that.
You could literally just silently give money to a fund. Like, it's not.
Literally, you don't have to do it publicly. You don't have to do it publicly. Just
Yo,
do something.
that Kanye was great at that. Kanye just fucking chucked a whole bunch of money and didn't say shit.
Kanye West. Like, do you know what I
Have
mean?
you seen? Have you seen
I
the
didn't. I
post
didn't. I didn't know
being
about
like,
that.
so this is the crazy thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of black people have gone, Kanye West has lost his mind and is now a right wing mental case.
Kanye.
But I saw this post that, even like, apparently he has like told his like assistant, and his assistant came out and was like, yo, this is what happened.
Yeah.
He got rid of all his MAGA hats and was like, I don't need these anymore. And he was like, well, why'd you have them in the first place? And Kanye was like, do you think we would have got the meeting with Donald Trump to get those people out of prison had I not worn the MAGA hat? And if you look into the donations to people's campaigns, Kanye donated to Hillary. He didn't donate to Donald Trump.
Oh shit.
And I was like, and now he's given like $2 million to he's set up a fund for George Floyd's kids to go to college, and like all sorts of different stuff, and he's donating. And everyone's like, yo, Kanye was like playing us this whole time.
Kanye. I mean, look, I haven't looked into a lot of that. That's mad. That's
Yeah,
mad. That's mad. I'm not gonna lie. I thought I was one of those people that was. I was like, don't do us like that,
yeah, yeah,
Kanye.
yeah.
Like he was saying a lot of mad stuff. He was saying a
For
lot of mad
for
stuff.
sure,
Um,
for sure.
but like I think in times like that, put your money where your mouth is. Like if you've got if money is what you have, put money. Even if you don't have money, like go and watch one of those YouTube
Those
just
YouTube things. Go
where you can
hoover
just
the
like
living room and just put it on. Do you know what I
on a
mean?
real like listen to music, like look at art, watch movies. Many different ways to support, and even if like there's been so many times like I mean so many of my friends from uh all over the place from school from all over the place have messaged me and been like and you know like apologized for not speaking out sooner and apologized for um the way things are, and like there is a part of it that is a bit overwhelming when you're just like bombarded with like loads of like white people messaging you and like and saying a lot of stuff. Like it is a bit overwhelming, but like even in a situation like that, you're not gonna go, "Oh, don't do that. That's so shit." You're just gonna
Yes.
go, "Okay, thank you. Just be better. Don't let that
Yeah.
happen again. Let's
Mm.
not be in this situation. Let's not have to have this conversation again." And if you're in a situation, which you will be, where there's maybe one black person on set or one black person in the rehearsal room or on stage or whatever, and something happens, the director's like someone in a position of power is being insensitive or being like directly racist or whatever, like speak out on their behalf, because it is so much harder for that young black person to take on maybe everyone and be accused of pulling the race card than it is for you who won't be marginalized for it like to the same extent. Like it's you have power, and this is an issue that affects everyone, and so now is the time for you to play your part, which is to speak out on behalf of your black friends, the same black friends you're like messaging right now. Do you know what I mean?
And in those situations, so say you're on a set, whether it's a
Yeah,
film set or a theater set, and or in a rehearsal room, and you see someone in a position of power or anyone being racially
yeah.
insensitive, and say I'm on the set as well, as unlikely as that is, that we would you advise that, say for example it's me and you on a set and someone says something racially insensitive and you feel like it would be difficult for you to speak up potentially, and I kind of notice this, would you say that it would be better if at some point I come up to you and say, hey man, I noticed this happened, how did you feel about that, and then address it, rather than it happening and me going like calling it out in the moment before kind of consulting you?
I think it depends. It depends on who you are. It depends on a lot of stuff. Like it's a lot of this stuff is like it's yeah, like it depends on the moment and it depends on the situation and the context. And there are some people who, depending on where they are in their life and where their mental state is, won't want to have a conversation about race. Like
Yeah,
might just want to ignore it. And there are some people who would really appreciate in the moment a defense, like someone standing with them.
yeah,
And so I don't know the answer to that. I think it depends on where you're at, because there are times where I don't want to have conversations about race.
yeah.
Like there's been times in my life. There was one time I was in Italy. We went to Italy with Guildhall actually,
Hmm.
and I was at a pool, and we were in Italy. I was at a pool. I was the only black person there. I was maybe like me. Well, let's say everyone in my year was there. So like maximum four of us, four black people. We're all from Guildhall. We're all there, and one Italian guy, a random guy with his family at the same pool, just keeps calling me Balotelli, an Italian footballer. Just keeps calling me
Mm.
Balotelli, 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 and I just didn't want to have this conversation.
Yeah,
I didn't want to have to sit down with him and talk to him about why that might make someone feel like shit. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be like your Romanian friend said. I didn't want to be a black guy at the pool. I just wanted to be at the pool.
yeah,
And so I remember one of my teachers came up to me and said, "Oh, why didn't you say anything to him?" And I was like, I just didn't want to have the conversation. I didn't want for one day. I just don't want to talk about it.
yeah.
I just want to be a guy at the pool. And so you, you have to understand. And I think your friend Akin said something about I can't really remember exactly what it is, so I'm sorry if I'm misquoting him, but he was saying something along the lines of being too tired to fight the fight, or
Yeah,
do
he
you remember what
said
I'm talking
if
about?
you're tired of having conversations, difficult
Yeah.
conversations about racism, you're tired of fighting racism.
I agree and I don't agree, because there
Mm.
are some times where you are just exhausted
And that's
and
yeah,
you need to preserve your mental health. But there are also times where I'm like, it's uncomfortable and it's tough. And if you feel like shit, then do something so that somebody else later on down the line doesn't feel like shit. Because
Yeah.
I left that situation feeling like, okay, but you know, I did what I had to do to preserve my mental health and to just, you know, do me and look after myself. But what happens when Kalunji and Jasmine come to Italy next year and maybe go to the pool and run into the same person at the pool? Are they like, what's gonna happen? And so maybe had I had that conversation um with that guy who probably didn't know he was offending me, maybe, let's say, like it was just ignorance as opposed to
Yeah,
anything.
as someone who comes from an half Italian background, Italian people are fairly often insensitive and just unaware
Yeah,
of
yeah,
race a lot of the time. And that's
a lot,
okay to
yeah,
say.
yeah, it is.
Culturally.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for Italian people, but like the experience that I've had, like on both times when I was in Italy, and I've been to Italy a couple of times, like if I get called a nigger, and like there was one time I got called the N word, and I was like, like this was one of the instances where I just lost my shit, and I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like, what are you mad? Like, what's going on? You can't call me that. Don't call me that. And I was so angry,
Hmm.
and the guy was looking at me like, what did I do? Like, I just like that's just what we say around here. And so then
Yeah.
you have to have a conversation because somebody just doesn't know that they're offending you. And but then again, like we get to the conversation of, is it your responsibility to have to educate people? And it shouldn't be, but unfortunately it is, because if you don't have that conversation there and then that's going to happen again.
Yeah.
But you might not want to have that conversation
Yeah.
because you might need to preserve your mental health. And so it's a yeah, it's a
There's a
burden to that.
conversation about like I think what we should all be aiming to do in general, whether it's about racism or anything else in
Yeah,
our lives, is picking up the heaviest weight that we can carry and carrying it. And some people can carry more than others, and that's okay. Some people can take on the weight of more conversations over the course of a year than other
yeah,
people can, and that's okay. But you just take what you think you can honestly, and you carry as much of the weight as you possibly can, and I think that's okay.
yeah. That is okay. Um, That's okay. I mean, I'm saying all of this, but I also don't want, you know, like any lovely white viewers listening to this to go, "Oh, yes, I'm exhausted
I
too."
am
No,
tired.
like,
Yeah,
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 yeah, like, yeah, that's a different conversation. Do you know
that's
what I
it.
mean?
That's
You
always
have,
in my head where I'm like, oh, I'm very tired of reading these articles, and then I go, oh wait, no, I haven't experienced racism for my entire life. Okay,
yeah.
let's
This
keep
is
going.
this is years of running versus days of running. Like,
Yeah,
don't, yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
but I'm
Persevere is what I'm gonna say. Yeah,
yeah,
pull through, pull through.
there's an interesting discussion where in the last 2 days I've seen a lot of people being like, yo, why are people not posting about like why are you going back to posting your normal bullshit? And I think there's an interesting question around if we if you insist on people only posting about anti-racism, that increases the risk of it becoming a flash in the pan and only lasting 2 weeks. Whereas what I want people to do and what I want to do is embed more promotion of anti-racism into my normal stream so that
Yeah,
it becomes a more long-lasting movement within my own life.
yeah. I completely agree with you. And we're back to the conversation about virtue signaling. Like, there
Yeah.
are some people who are doing it right now because it's the trendy, popular thing to do. Um, and those people exist. And part of this movement is trying to weed those people out and challenge them and confront them. Um, yeah, like posting on social media isn't what it's about. Like, it's not. That's not the
Mm.
be all and end all. I think people
It's
should
part of
continue to
it.
do it. It's part of it. Yeah, but you're right. Like, I would. Like, I'm not saying if it's, you know, your birthday, put up a birthday post. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
do you know
Turn
what I
up.
mean?
Like,
Have a cake,
yeah,
like have a
yeah,
yeah,
on a real, live your life. But like, yeah, you're right. This doesn't have to be okay. We're staying here until the whole thing changes, because that's not going to
because it's
happen, and people are
long.
just going to forget. But
I
you're
don't
right.
like
Like,
this
embed it into.
hashtag end racism now. It's not going to end now.
I
It's gonna
fucking wish it would, bro. I wish it would, but
obviously,
yeah,
but we have to understand that it will take a long-term concerted effort from as many people as possible.
yeah,
You
and
know what I mean?
it needs to be continual. And you're right. I think a lot of people should just embed it into their daily lives, and a lot of the people that I have on my Instagram do anyway, and
Mhm.
have been. this vocal about other issues, you know, like about, you know, like the Me Too movement, and, you know, about the rights of LGBTQ plus people. Like it's something that I've watched people do, and so it's possible. Like you can just live your regular life and still be vocal about these
Yeah,
issues.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's an interesting guy. I don't know if you've seen Dane Baptiste.
no,
He's a comedian. Oh, he's fantastic. He's doing fantastic work at the minute. If anyone's
yeah,
listening and doesn't or watching and hasn't seen Dane Baptiste, give him a follow. He's a comedian and he's very, very funny, but he has really pushed to the forefront and he has very outspokenly been like, look, I saw all of you middle class white comedians doing Edinburgh shows about how your parents divorced or about the time that you were sexually harassed. And that's valid and you're allowed to be outspoken about things. But where the fuck are you now? Like you have put yourself forward as a person who fights for justice and civil rights. And what's happened? Do you actually just not care? Like what's going on?
yeah,
And I think it is really brave of people who are existing with this huge platform and a lot of fans. And almost there's this weird thing where you almost need people with racist followings to be posting about this more than anyone else because we can post. I mean, I know that there are some people who might disagree with me. Actually, we'll talk about it. I had a conversation with a follower of mine on Instagram because I happened to stumble upon his profile and I saw that he had all lives matter in his bio on Instagram. And
hmm,
this is like, I'm not going to say who it is. He's like a teenager in Belfast. And I have spent 3 days debating with him and trying really hard not to get angry and just trying to educate him and be like, this is why I think this. And he's gone, oh, but what about this? What about this? What about this? All these kind of flawed statistics. And
yeah,
it is so hard not to get,
yeah.
it's really hard to argue with a 14-year-old.
I mean, yeah, that's jarring. That's jarring.
So it's like what am I supposed, like he's keeps coming back with all these statistics and I admire him critically thinking about things and trying to work out his own whatever, but it's so like he's just not listening. He's not listening when I refute any of
Yeah,
his things. It's all very like, but what about this? And what about working class white people? And what about this? And what about this? And I'm like, did you speak out about police brutality against white people before now? Okay, then why are you doing it now? You know
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? It's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it
It's
makes
it's
it this.
it's very convenient, but like you're right. People with people like that on their Instagram or on their Twitter need to be posting this because like those are the people that you need to affect. Like it's all going to well posting it amongst the people that who are
Your
already
echo
on
chamber.
board.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but then there's also benefit in that because like there are
Yes.
people like the people I went to school with at drum school who are great people, some of my best friends ever, like
Mm.
friends that I've made for life, who still need to do more. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And who still need to be aware that they can do more and they should be doing more, and
Mm.
who will now hopefully do more. And so there's benefit to that as well. But then you're right, like there are people who I think about this with politics a lot. It's like, you know, like so many of the people that I know, I hope like vote Labour, and so you know when it's time for a general election and I'm posting all of this stuff, I'm like, am I really changing people? Am I really
Yeah.
affecting people? Like
Yeah.
we're all doing the same thing, and so it's tough. But I think in this instance, like nobody is at that place where they're like, like I'm doing my bit. This is where I need to be, and I can't afford
Yeah.
to learn anything. Not even me. Like there's still so much that I don't know. I think
I
that's
think
another thing. It's like,
this is a weird
yeah.
thing where everyone, there's two things. One, everyone assumes that all black people have read all of the books on everything. And
Oh my
it's
god, dude. I don't know. Like I've lived it. I've
well,
lived
yeah,
it, but like on a real like
yeah,
but it's like people are coming up to me and they're like, "Oh, what book should I be reading? What this and that?" It's like I've not
I'm
devoted
not,
my life to like I'm not a black history
I'm
activist. Like
not.
it's I'm not like a library of knowledge. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know, bro. I don't know how I'm supposed to be protesting. I don't know how to solve institutional racism. Like I just happen to be a black guy. But
yeah,
yeah, like fam, your black friends don't have all the answers. They
yes.
don't have all the answers.
And also, they
That's
don't
some of it.
have all the same opinions either. This
Yeah,
is this
yeah, yeah,
bizarre
yeah,
thing where everyone goes, like, it's very well intentioned to amplify black voices, but please don't amplify Candace Owens. Do you know what I mean? It's like this kind of, like, I could
yeah.
retweet
Pick and choose.
two different black people
Yeah, 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 yeah,
posting the entirely opposite opinion.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm following your advice about amplify, not your, but like the royal, your
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
amplify black voices. And it's this thing of like, it's the same thing that like you spoke about experiencing at drama school. It's like this weight of speaking on behalf of your community
Yeah,
is just exhausting and ridiculous that you are
yeah.
expected to be the voice of an entire race of people.
It's yeah. I think it's yeah. We can talk about drama school all day. And this conversation is being had, and like even now in a situation where we're going to speak to the principals, sent a lot of alumni an email about doing a Zoom call, and we're going to have
Mm-hmm.
just another big conversation about what the school needs to do to be better, and they're going to speak to us about some of the changes that they've been implementing, that they're going to implement,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having an opportunity to, so like that's I kind of can't wait for that Zoom call, because I'm really interested to hear what they have to say, especially at a time where like one student has just made a tweet yesterday about a teacher who is now the head of acting calling her
I saw the
the N
tweet.
word repeatedly and calling it an acting exercise. And
I wanted
I'm
to.
really interested to see where Guildhall stands on this. Like I've emailed the principal. A lot of people have emailed the principal, and it's just like, okay, cool, respond,
There's
because
this.
yeah, come,
I think drama school is such an interesting frame within which to have this discussion because
yeah,
drama school is such a weird, and the rehearsal room in general and acting training in general is such a weird experience because it is about exploring all emotions, negative, positive, and stretching yourself and feeling uncomfortable, and it's where this balance lies, where I've heard of exercises in drama school where the girls stand on one side of the room and the guys all really aggressively catcall them on the other side of the room and say horrible, horrible things about what they're going to do to them. And it's
oh
like,
shit. I mean, we didn't have that in my year, but
so
no, that's
it's
mad.
like,
Yeah,
it's like there's this really tricky balance where, on a very separate point of view, I think there is a concern with some people about the softening of acting training, where people are very precious about being told that they're wrong or told that they're not doing it right or not working hard enough or not whatever, whatever, whatever. But there's definitely a line of like, definitely don't call someone the N word and call it an exercise. And it's about the context of it, because there's plays in which, like, have you heard the story of Leonardo DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson on the set of Django?
which story?
Where Leo was like, "Can we stop for a minute? I'm feeling really worn out by saying the N word so much." And Samuel
Yeah,
L. Jackson was like, "This is our fucking life. Like, turn the cameras back on and get used to it."
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
there's this, like, within the space of acting and drama school and kind of stories, there are points in which validly, like Mercury Fur, one of my favorite
yeah,
plays of
yeah,
all time,
yeah.
characters in that say in a one sentence every single racial slur that you've ever heard.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally every
It's a
single
mad
one.
play.
Yeah,
It's a good
it
play though.
is.
Yeah,
It is. I love it to bits, and I think part of the point that's made in that play is that at the start of the play you hear this very brutal language, and you go, "That's very jarring. Oh my god, that language is so offensive." And then by the end of the play, the language has completely faded into the background, and you don't even care about it anymore. And the action and the events that happen in the play are what's really horrifying. And it's this kind of like it opens up this discussion about language, and like white people have played those roles and said those words, and within the context of a rehearsal room, white people, because you want to represent racism in art,
yeah,
will have to play racist characters who will
yeah,
say those words. So there's
yeah.
this
I think
balance.
there's that. There's doing it in the context of play text, and
Hmm.
the context of a scene where you're playing a racist character who is saying horrible things. I think that's one thing, but like I think especially in an institution that doesn't have a single member of staff, a single like core member of staff who is black, like you can't just sit in a room and call a black student the N word. Like you
Yeah.
can't just do that outside of the context of a play to elicit, like, to get some sort of response. Like you're literally just in a room shouting that at a student to hurt them and to get a response out of them and to call that art. Like, that's not how you train actors. That shouldn't be how you train actors.
There's this
Like,
very strange, because the reason I auditioned for drama school is because I was doing some acting and I found myself spiraling into negative emotions and not knowing how to do it safely. And
yeah.
I assumed that that's what happened at drama school, but it really
Um,
doesn't feel like that's the case.
these people, like, they're not psychologists. They're
Yeah.
not. They're just former actors and acting teachers. Like, yes, okay, they can help you manage, going to these like emotional depths and blah blah blah, going to these places. But like, I just feel like it's common sense. You wouldn't get, a young Jewish student and bring up stuff about the Holocaust to try and get a response out of them.
Mm.
That doesn't make any sense. That's so insulting. It's like, it's outrageous. It's outrageous, and it's outrageous that it's taken up till now for um for the student to feel like they can speak about this.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, I don't think, like, at first when I saw that, like, that did flash into my mind, like the whole thing of, okay, but in the context of acting training, what can and can't you do to try
Yeah.
and get a response out of someone? But that's not okay.
Mm.
Like, and that's where I've landed. You can't do that. You can't do that. You really
And it's
just
good.
can't. And like, there's no point. You don't gain anything out of that. And there is no, like, we need
It's
to
not worth
really
it.
be careful. Yeah, it's like, what do you do? Like, okay, cool, that person could burst into tears once. Does that make them a better actor? What do
That's
you
the
gain from it?
real
Like,
discussion. Yeah.
I don't understand. There is no benefit from that at all. It's just stupid. It's stupid and it's fucked up. And you can't do that, especially you, a person in a position of power. Because also, what's mad about these places, about institutions like Guildhall and like most other drama schools, which I hope is changing now. But when I was there, if you had a complaint, you're taking it to the same teachers.
Yeah.
There is no independent body to, like, for you to voice your concerns to, that's outside of the training. So
And I
picture
think
this,
that,
like, you're like a young student, and you know that the teachers are deciding what you get cast in third year, what you get
mhm,
cast in to show your agents, and to maybe get an agent in third year, blah blah. They have all of this power over you and your career in your head. You think, young 18-year-old Toheeb, and something happens, and that same teacher has now offended you and made you feel small, and like, made you feel incredibly uncomfortable, and you now have to take this complaint to their peers or to the same teacher.
yeah.
And then what? And then when they get defensive, which they will, because you're calling them out on something, they're gonna get defensive, and they're gonna then make you feel like, oh, it's in your head, like,
And
that didn't happen. That's not
there's
the
a
case, and
there's
they win because
yeah,
the staff, like, they're the teacher, they have the position, they have
there's a
power, and you don't.
really, because immediately I thought, as former vice president of the SU, I thought, oh, we'll go to the SU are there to kind of anonymously pass on feedback to whatever, whatever, whatever. But then I thought, if the SU go to the acting teachers and go like, hey, somebody feels like you've been racially insensitive to them, they're going to be like, oh, well, it's one of the four black people. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So it's
and
like,
they'll probably remember that same incident straight away.
do
They'll
you know what I
probably,
mean? It's,
yeah, it will. But then, there is no way that it doesn't affect your training, and there's
yeah,
no way it doesn't affect how you feel at the school.
yeah,
It will, and so I think that's one thing that definitely needs to change. I think there definitely has to be at least one member of core staff at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama who is not white. Like,
yeah,
I can't believe that I'm here saying that in 2020, and the school has been up for God knows how long. How uncomfortable do you think female students would feel if they were being taught by
yeah,
a panel of all men? Would
yeah.
you not understand that they could feel a bit uncomfortable being taught for 3 years, 5 times a week, sometimes 8 hours a day, like 8 hour days, just being taught by men, white white men? It's weird. Like, and so then, when, for instance, I'm in first year and I go and speak to a member of staff who's my staff mentor, and I'm telling them that I feel a bit uncomfortable in my year group, and I don't quite fit in, and I don't like, there's a massive cultural shift that
Hmm.
like, I can't adjust to, and so I feel a bit ostracized from the year because I don't go to the pub. Like, I come from a Muslim family, so I didn't drink. I didn't really like, there was, of course, there was just a massive cultural, like, some of these people would come from completely different backgrounds to me, and they were the majority in the year group, so I didn't
Yeah.
feel a part of the year group. And the teacher just goes, well, maybe you should make an effort. Maybe you should, like, try going to the pub. Maybe you should, like, I feel like it's like, you will never understand what I'm talking about. So you're not in a position to, like, that's a problem that you can't solve. And again, we're in a situation where it's like, you are underprepared to deal with black students.
Yeah.
You are not ready for that. and you haven't put stuff in place to help those students feel like a part of the community. And so yeah, and so I'm not saying one black member of staff is going to solve that problem, but it's a start.
Yeah,
It's a start. I think about the
a
image
voice
that you
within
present
the staff. That's
on a
yeah,
real, like somebody who, like, so much of the stuff that happens at the school, like this, the staff will say, "Oh, we just weren't aware of that." Like when I brought up how uncomfortable I felt doing restoration comedies because of the context in which that they were set. Like, these plays were being done at a time where people that looked like me were slaves.
mm,
Like they were being sold as property, and I feel I can't really, like, it feels weird to do this play. Like it feels very strange, and that just wasn't really addressed. And you have members of staff who go, "Oh, like I just hadn't even thought about that," and I'm
yeah,
like,
because
"Yeah,
it
because
doesn't even yeah.
it's not your reality. It's not something you deal with on a day to day. But maybe if you had a member of staff who was black, who was in these meetings, who was a part of deciding what we
The
do as a
programming
school,
and the yeah.
yeah, maybe that person might have brought it up, whereas the entirety of the white the makeup of the staff at the time, like you could forget it because it's not your reality. It's not something you face. If there is a woman in the room, she might be able to highlight misogyny
Mm.
because it's a lived experience. It's something that's
And it's at the
constantly in the
front
front
of
of
their
them.
mind.
It's constantly in the front of their mind, and so, like, you can't deny that. And we've brought this up and we've spoken to the staff about this, and we had a whole year meeting about it at one point where all of every single student in the acting department was sat down in one room. We had the entire staff in front of us, sat on chairs, and you know, you've got Jasmine Jones, who is a fucking trooper. She is, like, so articulate, so clever. She was voicing her opinions on how exhausted she was at this school. And, Kalunji, one of the other students in the year below me who's black, goes, why are there no black members of staff? Like, why am I not seeing myself represented in the staff here? And you have teachers who are sat with their arms crossed and their heads down, not listening at all, and other teachers going, "Oh, well, we've looked, they just aren't there." Are you crazy? Do you mean to tell me that a school that stands at the front of drama training in the world has looked? What, you just got your principal from Australia, you've looked worldwide, and you can't find one black practitioner who is good enough to teach at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama? Is that what you're telling me? Because that's what you're showing me. And when you say stuff as careless as that, and, "Oh, we've looked, they just aren't there," the industry hasn't caught up yet. So these people, oh my god, do you know how
And
frustrating? Do you know how
there's that
frustrating that is?
culture in drama school of that. And I remember thinking this anytime I was on a board or like a meeting or a committee with any of the drama teachers, it would be like someone from the SU or someone from anywhere would be like, "Oh, this is an issue that we found at the minute," and the drama teachers go, "I see you," and you're just like, do something."
Okay, yeah. What next? What happens? Give me dates. Give me dates. Like, show me. I want stuff to change. And then people just, yeah, yeah. I understand. I
I
understand.
hear
And then
you. I hear you.
that's all that happens. You have these informal conversations, and then people nod. Yeah, I understand. They pat you on the back, give you a hug, and then everything goes back to normal. So I think that's why I'm partly interested in this Zoom meeting that we're gonna have later this month.
Yes, for sure.
Because, like, now you just can't deny it, and especially when you've put out a statement saying you stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. Cool, you've made that statement. Now you are open to being challenged, because every time you do something and you fail to accommodate your black students, I'm going to remind you that you just said you stand in support of the Black Lives
Yeah,
Matter movement. And
I don't.
so,
I don't remember their statement word for word, but was there any acknowledgement of issues within their statement?
I can't, let me check. Can you still see me?
Yeah, yeah.
Am I frozen?
I think let me check because I have my phone here and I'm not on it. So you jump
Okay, cool.
and I'll find it. It was on. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's on all their socials, but it was on Twitter as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of skim read it. I wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, because probably not the most important thing to read right now.
Yep.
A statement. Oh, it's their pinned tweet. That must mean it's important. Um, To our Guildhall community, students, staff, alumni, and friends, with our building closed and our community spread across the world, these last few days have been overwhelming to process in isolation. The school stands with all black communities and everyone fighting against racism and discrimination in the UK, US, and around the world. We urge the extended members of our community to do the same. We recognise that there is still a long way to go to ensure all voices are heard and represented in our own sector, let alone the wider world. This is a distressing time for many in our community. We are here for you, and we encourage you to seek support if you need it. For students fired, blah 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 blah, etc. Black Lives Matter, Lynn Williams.
So no,
No,
no.
they said sector. They said there's a
Yeah,
long way to go in our sector, not us, but our sector.
yeah. Well, I think that's what's interesting partly about, the tweet that was made yesterday is that you do. If I was to go and speak to every single, non-white actor who's come out of the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in the last 10 years and be like, talk to me about your time, like the list of stuff that I could bring to you, like
Mm.
me alone, the list of stuff that I can bring to you just from my experience alone, of one of four in my year group, let alone, it's mad. So like they need to apologize. They need to apologize.
Yeah,
And
you need
this
to
is another thing that I'll bring up.
acknowledge.
Like you just do, because otherwise you're just, it's a slap in the face, man. And that's why a statement like that. Can you understand why a statement like that is so frustrating for a
Mm.
black student who's been to Guildhall? It's like there is no acknowledgement of the fact that you have subjected those students to like years and years of trauma and microaggressions and uncomfortability and frustration. And while you're growing and while you're willing to change and while you're putting stuff in place, like the time in which it takes for that stuff to happen, it's still going on in your school.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't just expect students to sit down and be passive and be happy because you're finally willing to do something about it. It's like, nah, man, it's mad. And so then I feel conflicted when I help a young student with their drama school monologues to go to drama school, because it's like, why am I helping you to go there and get traumatized? Like what?
Yeah.
Like this is stuff that it's lifelong stuff that stays with you. It affects the way you speak. It affects the way it changed my accent. Like I came from South London coming into Guildhall, and you have these constant jabs about the way you speak, about how it doesn't sound the same, about how it's not clear, about
Mate,
how it's not this and that.
I mean, I
I
know
mean,
it's
you
not the
probably felt the same.
same, but I
Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
like myself and Luke. I remember in performance platforms, which was every Tuesday. Like someone gets up, performs from your year, and then people give feedback from the audience. And I remember anytime myself or Luke, who's from Glasgow, spoke, everyone would laugh. No matter what we said, no matter how serious it was, everyone would laugh. And myself and Luke dealt with it in very different ways. Luke just kind of stopped. He knows he has thoughts on what they did and he doesn't need to share it with anyone else. He knows what he thinks and he knows he can get on with it. Because Luke's one of the most incredible musicians I've ever met in my whole life and just
shout out Luke.
incredibly intelligent.
Shout out Luke.
And whereas I spoke incessantly and as intelligently as I possibly could and as articulately as not articulate in terms of like hitting all my consonants properly,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
in terms of expressing my ideas as well as I possibly could, in that sense of like activism being
yeah,
just being undeniable, being like, I have something valid to say and I'm just going to talk through your laughter
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
I just
yeah,
don't. And I remember I had to have a lot of conversations in my first year and through as well. And the problem I've found recently is when I try and empathize or just like find a way into conversations through my own experience, a lot of people go, don't equate yourself with the black experience. And I like always try and make it clear that I'm not equating this. I'm just trying to find common ground to further the discussion with
yeah.
people.
Yeah. I think like it's yeah, yeah, and I agree with you. Like you do need to do that. Like a lot of times, just to try and get people to understand, I liken the like the movement with the black community to other movements of other
Yes,
oppressed
well, you've done it
minorities,
in
and
this
even though it's
conversation. You said with the like with if it was all men and you were a female
yeah,
student.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah, yeah.
mean?
Like it's so different. There are so many subtle nuanced differences between the two like struggles and movements. Like it's just, but sometimes it is just a simple way to view it.
Yeah,
And so yeah, like you can't, like, let's not get bogged down with, oh, but it's not technically the same. Like you understand what I mean by it. Like
yeah,
it's similar enough because it's one oppressed minority and it's another oppressed minority. Like if you feel like the way you speak isn't good enough for the RP, society of Guildhall, then that's, your struggle. And we are similar in that I feel the same way. Like yes, it's different because race attached on one side and there's years and years and years of history, but it's still the same problem. Like
yeah.
the way we spoke changed, and so it's similar in that regard.
There's and I had a strange experience. One of my kind of core teachers was originally from Liverpool and had quite a thick Scouse accent. back in the day, but now he speaks with perfect RP. But do you know what I fucking hate about myself? The fact that I just said perfect RP as if RP is the standard of speaking.
Bro, it's crazy. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, my accent, and then like a normal accent. I go, what the fuck? What the fuck is normal? It's not normal. It's not normal. It's just your accent. And someone,
Yeah,
this is what I mean by like, it's a lifelong thing. Like it sticks
it's
with
in
you, and
yourself. It's in
it's
you.
oh my god, it drives you crazy. It drives you absolutely crazy. Oh my, I'm so glad you said that. It's
Yeah,
mad. It's mad. Like
it's mad.
I say that all the time unknowingly. I just go, oh yeah, that person, like, what's the accent? Yeah, just got a normal accent.
Yeah,
Oh
RP, they've got received pronunciation, which is even the phrase received pronunciation, received from fucking who?
oh man, yeah, it's a big old thing, man. It's a big old thing,
It
and
is big.
yeah, it's oh man,
And
it's just it's a
man,
lot.
there's an interesting discussion about art and the art that I come from is comedy, and there's also people have issues with representing serious views through comedy, and if you think that's the case, yeah,
Are you mad? Like,
don't make jokes about the topic of race. Hey, but what if it's an anti-racist joke? Like what? Like
no, but it's like the comedians for a long time have been the ones who can like speak out on this stuff. Like
push.
it's like you think about.
Have you seen the Michael Che clip about Black Lives Matter?
No, I haven't.
He's
What's
just
he say?
like it's just the whole premise is like Black Lives Matter is a controversial statement. Like matter. What's less than matter? Exist? They can I say that? Black lives exist and it's just incredible bit. And my example is for people saying, oh, but like you're devaluing the message by presenting it in a comedic way. And I don't think that's the case whatsoever. Number one, because to talk about the Me Too movement again, the downfall of Bill Cosby came from a comedian called Hannibal Buress talking about it on stage. He got up and spoke about how Bill Cosby said black people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I had a TV show in the 80s, like stop swearing, da 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 da, all this stuff. And then he was just like, but Bill Cosby's a rapist. And everyone was like, ah, and he was like, no, 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 Google it. Google Bill Cosby rapist, and it will have more results than my name. And it was just like, and it was
oh god.
that's how that started.
But like, I don't even know why we're having this conversation. Like, who would say that the comedy
Man.
isn't a way to? Are you like Eddie Murphy's made a living off it, of
Yeah.
like social commentary. Like, so many comedians have. Yeah, man. Don't sleep on comedians,
But
man.
I was
That's so
the reason I
important.
brought it up is massive props to you. I remember coming to see your solo show, and I remember
Yes.
thinking, like, what are your? Because I don't remember it obviously word for word, and you'll kind of remember more of it me. But I remember thinking that was really really powerful, and I remember thinking when you brought up the accent stuff, like that was why I thought to bring up the accent stuff with you was you mentioned about the diphthong in the words
Oh
like
yeah.
clear or something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I would say in my accent, I'd say clear. Oh,
yeah.
that's clear. That's very clear to see. And like, you'd be doing that, and then you'd say clear, and someone would go, oh, by the way, it's clear. It's clear.
It,
It's a diphthong. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like sharp.
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing an accent, I understand. Like if I'm doing an
Yes.
accent, and you're teaching me,
Correct me. Yeah, yeah, and help me.
but
And
then like, but like even little things like a teacher will go, oh, I don't understand why you say research. It's research. What the hell does that have to do with what I'm trying to say?
this is the
Like,
thing where it's like, did it make sense? Did you understand what I said? Did I get my
yeah,
point across?
yeah, just like that's not why I've come here. But like teachers will say it goes further. Like teachers will like there was one teacher in particular who will constantly tell stories about how students will audition for the RSC or whatever, and casting directors will call them, and the teacher would be like, oh, so how did they do? Like, did you like them? And they'd be like, oh yeah, they're good, but they just couldn't do RP. And the teacher will be like, no, 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 call them back. They can do RP. They can do RP. And so then you would hear stories like that, and then go, oh, okay, so maybe if I go into an audition room and I speak with the accent that I have, then maybe I won't get that job. Like, do
There's
you know
this
what I mean? Maybe
weird thing of like people will say things like, "Oh, it's so amazing that you can do accents even though you have such a thick one yourself,"
mm,
as if
mm.
having RP is like a zero starting point that you can reach any accent to. You know what I
like
mean?
it's mad. Like you're just reiterating the idea that you are not the norm. 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 And when nearly every teacher in the school speaks with an RP accent, like you're just constantly told that you are not the norm. You need to change. You need to change. You need to change. And I think that's one of the main things that I just want to emphasize to anybody who is listening, to anybody who wants to go to drama school, who has been to drama school, or who is at drama school now. Like, you don't need to change for them. They need to change for you. They can't accommodate you right now. You don't need to change how you speak, how you behave, anything that's integral to you and your culture, because that's what's going to get you work when you leave. And once I jumped out of drama school, people want me and everything that comes with me. They want me, and they want Brixton too, and they want Nigeria too, and they want all of that. Sometimes they don't, but that's what's getting me the work that I'm doing now. All of the stuff that I do have, stuff that I was subtly told by Guildhall to maybe change, because you know what I mean, like, I mean, if you want to increase your chances, you might want to just
It's
maybe.
there's this bizarre phrase of actors should come out of drama school as a blank canvas.
Oh God,
And
yeah.
number one, that metaphor is literally white. And it's like
Yeah, yeah.
and it's but what is your idea of a blank canvas? Is it RP, or is it general American, or is it historical pronunciation, or is it like
Mm,
what does that mean to come out? And it's what you said. It's like you have like to be an actor that people latch onto and that people connect with. There has to be
yeah,
something, and you want to be a chameleon. You want to be able to play whatever part you want to play. And
yeah,
arguably, as a black actor going through drama school, having played almost, and I think I saw you speak about this, but I've never seen someone speak about it. Having gone through drama school and played almost 100% white roles
yeah.
the whole way through drama school, like I can play, like you can play other things. You know what I mean? But
I
it's
I can, and you don't at drama school, because when you ask them to do a play where there's a maybe a majority black cast, or it's talking about race, they remind you that there aren't enough students to do it. Great, and so then you're like, okay, why aren't there enough students? And then I had this conversation with one of my teachers, like, why aren't there enough students to do it? Then, oh well, they just don't audition. Okay, so if for instance there was a year where 30 black kids were the best actors you've seen across the board, is it possible for the Guildhall School to accept 30 black actors into 1 year? Is that possible? Well, no, because that's not a cross section of society. What?
then what are you talking about the bet? Like, do you know what I mean?
Okay, do you know what I mean? So what you're telling me is that this is a trend, and you're doing it on purpose because you want to represent what you think is a cross section of society, which
Mm-hmm.
is 2 to 3 black in a year of 26. And so like don't make it out as though it's a meritocracy, like, oh well, whoever comes and whoever's good, that's who we take. No, you're doing it on purpose. So then don't dismiss the idea of quota system. You've just said that you want to represent what you think is a cross section of society, so it makes sense that there are maximum 4 black students in 1 year group. It makes sense. No, for a long time there were more men than women. There were more boys accepted than girls. And like, I've heard teachers say, oh well, like, the plays that we do, like, there aren't enough parts for the women, and so we can't take on 50%. Like, you're doing it on purpose. You're aware of this, and so they'll say that, and then on the one hand, and on the other hand, try and tell you that it's a meritocracy, and if you come in, if you're good, then you stand just as much a chance as your white counterpart. You don't. Statistically, you don't. And so yeah, man, it's
There's
bullshit. Like,
there's
it's
an
just.
interesting discussion about. I think quota systems devalue grassroots work that needs to be done. So,
Yeah,
for example, if you put in place a quota system at the top, the conservatoire level, which is a very high level of audition, like it's the kind of cream of the crop, to use another white phrase. Um, and it's like to 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 do that at the top level is well intentioned for sure, but
yeah,
if you're honestly saying that you're not getting the applications from people of color, then you need to address it at why are they not accessing drama and acting when they're in school, or when they're in their communities, or like whatever, like people from all kinds of different backgrounds. Like there's a there's an intersection with class as well, I think, in the representation at drama schools, where it is a very middle class place to
Yeah,
exist in, and there's a discussion around, and that's why Open Door speaks a lot about class as well as about race.
yeah.
And I think, like, so what do you think? Do you think quotas at the conservatoire level are a good idea, and what do you think about how they don't address potential issues at the lower level with engagement?
I don't. I wouldn't. Advocate for a quota system
Mm.
for Guildhall in terms of students, or even in terms of staff. Like, I'm not saying you have to have this and that solves the problem, because that's just, that's face value, and it's like, yeah, like as you said, like it sweeps a lot of the problems under the carpet.
Hmm.
But what you have to do is address. So if the problem is, you want to represent a cross section of society, then get rid of that idea, because it's complete nonsense. That's bullshit. To put it frankly, it's bullshit. Um, so if the problem then is
That's such
not
a weird
enough,
aim to have with an intake of students. Do you know what I mean?
like almost 3,000 people apply for 26 places,
Yeah.
and you like it's that doesn't make sense to me. But that's one idea just needs to get completely scrapped. Um, that shouldn't be what yeah, that shouldn't be one of your aims as a drama school. So like, get rid of that firstly. Secondly, if the problem is not enough black students are auditioning, then maybe you need to think about why. Because I've spoken to so many black students who feel like, oh, well, drama school isn't for me, drama school isn't
Yeah.
made for people like me. I'm not going to go to drama school. Like, now that all of the like young and old drama school graduates and drama school these are coming out with their experiences at drama school, so many people are saying, you see, this is why I didn't want to audition to drama school, this is
Yeah.
why I'm not going to drama school, which I disagree with. Like, I would urge anyone to audition to drama school and go to drama school if you want to, if you want drama training. You shouldn't have to deprive yourself of this incredible opportunity, because that's what it is. It will literally launch your career. Like, these accredited schools that have a history of incredible drama training, which I got, you shouldn't deny yourself that just because they're not equipped to deal with non-white students. Like, that's not so yeah, like, if students feel like, oh, well, drama school isn't for me, then you need to do something to show them that it is. You need to go out of your way to work on
Yeah.
outreach and to
More
work
than
on
just making the cover of all your prospectuses covered in students of color. Do you know what I mean? Like,
black.
that's not
Exactly,
like, just
exactly.
stop inviting us
They
to
emailed.
photo shoots and actually fucking do something. Do you know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
they emailed my agents and they were like, "Oh, like, if we have a picture of Toheeb, we wanted to put it on a website or a prospectus or something." And I was asked me, they were like, "Are you cool with that?" And I was like, "I don't actually know, like, I don't know if I want to be like
The
another
face
tokenized
of,
black face."
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's the same thing of, like, urging kids to audition for drama schools, because, like, I don't know if I want to support that. It's kind of
Mm.
fucked up. It's going to leave you with lifelong scars, kind of. Good training as well, I hope, but lifelong scars. And but then I'm also like, like, when I was auditioning, seeing Papa Seidu's face on the website and
It
knowing
is
what he was
helpful.
doing, it's massively helpful, man. Like, just going, all right, cool. Like, he did it. He looks like me. He's kind of from the same area that I'm from. Like, if he can do it, and Papa's a good friend. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's what that image did for me. And
Mm.
we can't discount what, like, images do for people. And so when I say that you need a member of staff that's black, like, that's not a quota thing. That's not me being like, oh, well, you just need to have one because you need to have one. No, like, that's something you can do to address the problem of these institutions are for white middle class kids. Because if all the staff are white middle class people, um, actually, I'm not sure if all of them are middle class, but all of them are certainly white. Like, if all of them are, then, I mean, most of them are middle class probably. But if all of them are white, then, like, that's the image that you show to people. And
Mm.
if all of the students are white, that's the image you show to people. And so maybe you should do something to dispel that image, and maybe more talented young black kids who need to have their talent, training.
Nurtured and
Yeah, nurtured. Like, they 100%. You're doing a disservice to the talent of, like, British. You're denying British culture that talent,
yeah.
and British art that talent. You're So that's on you. You need to go out and address people. You need to fund outreach and diversity, and and there's a lot that you need to do, man. And maybe you should listen to your alumni when they say that there's a huge problem. Hey, look, man, it's such a big thing, man. It's such a like an emotional. It's such an emotional um time that I had at drama school, and it's such an emotional experience for so many non-white students. And like, like I'm here just thinking again, bro. Why am I having this conversation?
Yeah.
Why am I having this conversation? I just want to sleep. I just want to chill. I just want to play games, live my life. Like, yeah.
And
I
I'm
think the
aware that
onus
people
needs to.
will look at my podcast and go, "Oh, well, Vittorio's cashing in on this. He's had two black guests on, whatever." And I'm like, what Vittorio was doing is trying to talk about the things that the world is talking about with people who have like I wanna understand more about what the experiences of a black person at drama school, and someone who I saw you speaking out about it, and I went, oh, I think Toheeb would do have a really I would love to have a conversation with Toheeb, and I think what I hope is that a lot of people, white and non-white and black and Asian and all sorts of everyone who is thinking about going to drama school, who's been to drama school, has listened to this or is listening to this and thinks, and it's just about furthering that conversation in people's minds. And it's fucking
Yeah,
annoying, like you said,
100%.
that you have to have that you're the one that's burdened with that
Yeah,
conversation right now.
yeah.
And I hope it doesn't come across like I'm like tokenizing
Cashing
you,
in
or
on it. No,
yeah,
no,
do you
no,
know what I
no,
mean?
I mean, not at all. I don't think so. Like, I think part of what people need to do is amplify Black voices. And so, if you have a platform, a podcast, maybe you should speak to somebody. And maybe now I can affect a Northern Irish kid who might listen to your podcast and maybe change their opinion because that's not the reach that I have. Do you know what
Especially
I mean?
because, man, I met maybe five people of color before I moved to London.
That's not the first time I've heard something like that at all. Like it's
It's
normal. It's normal.
it's
And especially when you go
yeah,
to drama school, like you've got kids from all over the country who are like, yeah, like I've never,
it's just
and then,
white
there's that whole thing
homogeneity.
of, yeah, yeah, it is. And so,
And
like,
it's
I
not
think
there's nothing like it's not like there's anything I could have done about that, and it's not,
that's
but
not
it's
on
just,
you.
but
Like,
it's
yeah,
understanding that that's where you come from, and understanding that you need to reach out. And I find it so exciting. Like I mentioned in the podcast with Akin, I find it so
yeah,
exciting learning about people's cultures and backgrounds. I think it is like when I moved to London, I was like, this is so fucking cool,
yeah,
because I
yeah,
came
yeah,
from
yeah,
everyone. I mean, there's definitely two halves of the community that I come from that have some issues, but like coming over and realizing that not everyone's a Catholic or a Protestant, do you know, and do
yeah.
you know what I mean? And this whole experience of it, and a
Yeah,
question has popped into my head, and again, I don't expect you to be able to answer it, but it's something I've been thinking about today,
yeah.
where a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of anti-racist sentiment is often rooted in Christianity. Like a lot of people speak about it in ways, in kind of, in maybe Bible verses, or say like something about God or Jesus, like within their rhetoric about it. In my experience, and it's very interesting to me. And you coming from a Muslim background, where Christianity and Christianity's like mark that it has left on black communities and people of color is comes from a very brutal colonial past. So this, and it's not to deny anyone's religion, but I think it's very weird, or just kind of intriguing that like this fight against racism is rooted in something that potentially was part of colonialism.
That's a very interesting question. Um, it's a very, very interesting question, and I don't really feel equipped to answer it. Like I don't really
For
know.
sure, for
I
sure.
don't know enough about. I don't know enough about that stuff to answer it. And the little that I do know about religion and Christianity, um, is like, look, there's a history of people using like Bible verses or any religion to justify incredibly incredibly destructive things like racism
Mm,
or or extremism of any kind. Like there's a history. We have a history of that, of like people going, oh, but the Bible said, and oh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this said, oh, but that said, and like taking a tiny little thing and blowing it
Mm.
out of context and using it to justify whatever their beliefs are. And and yeah, like I think that's fucked up, and I think people should avoid that. But other than that, like I can't speak more about like the history of Christianity in the Black community. It's just something I don't know that much about.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a question for someone else.
Yeah, I don't fuck knows who that question's for.
No, but like, there will be someone
Yeah.
who goes, yeah, like cool, this is I've got thoughts on
Yo,
this, but
if you're
I don't know
listening to
that
this and you have thoughts on like the kind of colonialism, and because the reason I kind of know about it is two things. One, a lot of my family are like missionaries or like were missionaries. My kind of
guy.
granny, all of my granny's siblings were priests and nuns, and they all went all over the world. And it's a very strange feeling for me because it's not that kind of violent colonialism, and it's not like British colonialism, but it's the colonialism of the church, which is more about like an erasure of culture. Do you know what I mean? Where they go out and tell them that their belief systems are wrong and that their art is wrong, and they need to become part of this kind of white Christian church that they need to belong like that. Like Christianity went out to Africa and did that. It wiped out communities, cultures, and beliefs. And I remember at GCSE we studied a book called Things Fall Apart, which is actually set in Nigeria, where it's about missionaries going over and about this real struggle between um at that time. So it was very like those are that my two kind of insights to it. So it's just fascinating for me to see how, number one, I was talking to a really kind of very devout Christian friend of mine. I said, number one, it's amazing for to see that black people, particularly in America, who went through slave and in Britain actually, who went through slavery, to maintain their faith is just like incredible
Yeah, I
resolve.
think it goes like what you can't deny is like how people benefit from religion.
Hmm.
And like my own relationship with religion is like complicated in its own thing. But I have so many friends, like one of my really close friends who's found so much joy and peace from religion. And like I said, like people have always used religion to justify whatever their
Yeah,
desires were. And and that doesn't necessarily speak for the religion itself. It speaks for the people who choose to use the religion
yeah,
in that way.
that's for sure.
And
That's kind
so
of that
and
that
so like
that discussion on
yeah,
extremism.
on a real, like it's yeah, so like people now who are using like Bible verses or whatever to like try and denounce the Black Lives Matter movement.
But
It's
it's
like,
also in favor of the Black Lives Matter movement. So
oh yeah,
the thing I want to talk about is like people use Bible verses to kind of speak about their faith in God, helping them promote this kind of anti-racist and inclusive message. And it's just this weird dichotomy where it's like you're speaking an anti-racist and almost anti-colonial message
yeah.
through the medium of something that is an inherently colonial thing.
Mm, I don't know. I don't know. I think yeah, as I said, that's a discussion for someone else. And
Yeah.
I think people I've got a friend who I could ask about that actually because it's an interesting question and it's one that I haven't really thought about before. But I think the Bible and Christianity now has gone on to represent so much more than maybe what it
Yeah.
once was. And so for so many people they don't attribute it with its colonial history.
Mm.
They just attribute it with their religion, with God. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, but like I said, I think that question is for someone else, and I think somebody will probably give you a much more interesting conversation with it. Um,
Yeah.
but I am not that guy. I am not that guy. I ain't got the answers, Sway.
I wanted to ask. You mentioned earlier about the when you arrived at Guildhall, when we spoke about like becoming a black guy and never
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
being a black guy. Your experience of your only experience of being and feeling othered or feeling like a black guy was with the police. Like, what was your kind of experience of that?
Like growing up, I grew up in Brixton in South London at a time where, um, there was a lot of stuff going on in Brixton. Like there was a lot of like it was a very violent time. Um, there were a lot of there was just yeah like it's a very working class community,
Hmm.
and there's I mean, that's a whole other conversation in itself. But I was at a time where Brixton wasn't a very safe place. It was a rough area,
Mm.
and so naturally, it's like over policed, like a lot of areas in London that have working class and usually black working class families living
Yeah.
there, and so I would always encounter the police. Like I've been stopped and searched
Yeah.
a lot of times, and so like I think in a place where I think this is me growing up was that was a situation where I was aware of systemic racism, but I wasn't a part of the system. Like I wasn't a part of the
Yes.
police. I wasn't a part of the police force or anything like that. And so, you'd be walking down the street with your friends, and police officers will come up to you and ask you what you're doing, and you'd be like, I'm chilling with my friends. I'm
Yeah.
about to go and play football. I'm about to do this or do that. And, you'd be like just harassed by the police. There was one time when I was moving from my house in Brixton to Crouch End, and I had like loads of IKEA bags filled with stuff that I'd stolen from my parents' house, and I was gonna like take to my new house. And me and three of my friends were walking down these big IKEA bags filled with duvets and pillows and plates. And police storm us. One of my friends gets tackled to the floor in the street, like off all the stuff. There's like three, four, five police officers coming through. I think they must have been like trying to do a raid on somewhere, but like they see
Mm.
us, and so one of my friends is on the floor. I have no clue what's going on. Like I've been held by a police officer. One of my other friends is being spoken to by a police officer. I've then been put in handcuffs while they search our bags and realize that there's nothing in there. And then, you know, everybody goes away and
It's
that's it.
like, oh yeah, sorry,
And
bye.
that's, but yeah, and that's a common occurrence. Like you can
Yeah.
speak to so many people who grew up in South London and they'll have a police story or two. Do you know what I mean? And so, but like, that's just life being black in the UK. Like you will be, and if you live in an area like Brixton, like you will be harassed by the police. Like you are going to have some experience with them.
Yeah,
And so that was my
I've
first
had an
experience
interesting
with
experience. I started teaching at a school near there in Vauxhall, so within kind of
Okay, yeah,
Lambeth and kind of
yeah, yeah,
secondary school. It's very like like the council pays for all the lessons. It's not like these are kids who are paying for extracurricular lessons, and it's like I think there's some. It's a very like generally quite a low income school and working class. A lot of kids from working class families, and just the really eye opening thing of like of hearing the head of music be like, oh, could we set up like this club for them to do after school? Because really, we're just trying to keep them off the streets for as long as we possibly can, so they can get home safely and not get involved in this and that. And then another student of mine was like, had to be told one day. I was like, oh, where is he? And like he wasn't in, and he was like, yeah, he's not doing drum lessons anymore. Like I know you won't treat him differently. Like he'll be back in a couple of weeks time, but essentially he's really wound up in like drugs and gangs, and he's pretty high up in like in that kind of thing. And I was like, these kids were like 14, and I was like, this is like this like eye opening experience of how these communities are downtrodden. And I found I had this really weird parallel where I was in the middle of it watching that documentary The 13th, and a theme in it was about how in America the difference of prison sentences and kind of attitudes towards crack cocaine and powdered cocaine were so different, and how like they were treated different by the police and just culturally. So it was like crack cocaine was like
mm-hmm,
literally pumped into black neighborhoods by the government. Like it was
mm-hmm,
no ifs or buts about it, but it's like,
yeah,
and it got me thinking. I was like, for people watching this and thinking like, oh, but that's an America thing. Like, look at the attitudes of people towards powdered cocaine in London. It's like around Guildhall, where we existed for such a long time. Finance and law and banking are full of cokeheads. Just
yeah, yeah,
unbelievable amounts of cocaine will pass through those buildings on a daily basis. And then you
yeah,
go somewhere like Brixton or Vauxhall, and you go, and these communities are like demonized and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
oppressed by the
yeah.
police because of much more minor
Yeah, no, real.
interactions
Like
with
some
drugs.
people, like yeah, like have weed on them or something, like
Yeah.
smoke marijuana, and it's like you could go to jail for that. Like, do you know what
Mm.
I mean? Like people, it's just like this isn't a, it's not a new thing, and it's not an American problem. Like it's a problem. It's racism, and it spans the UK and the US. And yeah, you're completely right. Like you demonize these communities. bro, this is another huge conversation that we can have, like, about policing in the UK, and in the US, and the parallels between them, because it's shockingly similar. It's shockingly similar. Um, so many people will say, "Oh, the stuff that's happening in the US is a US problem. Like, the police officers around here don't have guns and they don't shoot people and
They
blah
do
blah blah."
here.
But yeah,
In
yeah, but
Belfast,
like,
they have guns, but I know what you mean.
oh really? Yeah,
So
yeah,
in
yeah. Oh, I
Belfast,
didn't
we
know
do
that.
have guns. It's from the it's kind of a layover from the Troubles, where again, like a
Yeah,
point at which I can, and not to equate, is like Catholics were demonized by the police in Northern Ireland, and kind of like I remember when I was 14 or 15, I'd just done like a youth orchestra concert, and we were in a bar afterwards, and a police car went past with sirens on, and a friend of mine who's a Protestant went like, "Oh, how do you feel about that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?"
yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, because you're Catholic, and like police are way more brutal to Catholics." And I was like, uh, "What do you like? What do you want me to say?" Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I feel
yeah,
upset by a police car going past.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
I'm not a
Now that you
bitch.
mention it, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's
It's
like
like,
so, but it's like this. Yeah. So go on. What you were saying about the police? Sorry, I did interrupt you.
oh no, no, it's calm. Like, it is just that. Like, you think about, like, the Mark Duggan incident that, like, incited riots and like, and stuff in the UK. It's a UK problem too. Like, I have friends, like, people who I know, who have been assaulted by police officers, like, who've been beaten up. My house was booted into when I was away. I was at drama school at this point, and my parents were on holiday. I think it was just my brother in the house, and the police came into our house and did an unlawful search in the house. Like, they were in his car downstairs, and you know what the maddest thing is? He had a butter knife in his car that was from when I was moving to
Yeah,
from
it's falling out of
I
a
was
bag.
moving back. Yeah, yeah, I was moving back from Guildhall, from Sundial Court to Brixton. I was using his
Yeah.
car, and one of the butter knives must have fallen out. And so the police, like, for some reason, like, saw him outside his house, outside our estate, outside his house, and must have been in his car, and searched his car and found this knife, and went, "Oh well, because of this, we now have reason to go in and search your house." And so my brother's terrified at this time, and apparently they came in
Butter
and
knife.
trashed our house, and it's like that. I guarantee you, any of the white friends I have don't have a story like that.
Yeah.
Don't have a story about me watching my friend get tackled to the floor and being put in handcuffs while moving out of my house. Don't have a story of being stopped and searched when I'm, like, in school. I'm in school uniform, and, like, asked who my friends are, asked what my name is. Like, none of my white friends are gonna have stories like that. Like, um it's a UK problem too, and it's just racism.
And
Like, it's not a
it comes from
policing
that
problem, it's racism.
issue of the police. Like part of it is definitely this kind of really insidious internal racism where they just see all black people as the same. So if they get a description of like all they need from the description of a suspect of something is to hear black, and they will just tackle
you
someone.
you
Do you know what I
suddenly
mean?
have license to go and harass any black person that you
Whereas
see.
if you were told, if I'm sure that if they were told, those police officers, "Oh, the suspect is white," they'd be like, "What other information do you have?"
Do you know what I mean? Do you know, exactly? Yeah, what color is his hair? What was he wearing? Blah blah. But it's
Yeah,
like, black. Okay, cool. Boom,
yeah,
and you're out
yeah, yeah,
searching for
yeah,
black kids to harass. It's like,
yeah.
it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But like I said, you can get bogged down in all of those problems, because, like, the issue of race in, like, the Western world is so multifaceted.
Mhm.
And like we said at the start of this podcast, it's like, yo, you can, like, it will drive you crazy thinking about all the problems out there that you can't solve, and you can't solve all the world's problems. And so all you can do is sit down and pick one and do that. And so right now, I'm just like, I am committed to making the drama school experience for young black and non-white students better, and I can do that. That's
Mhm.
something I can do. Like, drama school can't affect me anymore. They can't affect my casting. I've already got my agent. I'm already working in the industry. I am safe. Like,
Yeah.
none of that's, like, they can't touch me. And they can't touch Michaela Cole either. Do you know what I mean? She's been out there speaking about her time at drama school, and it's brought about change. And she's doing it from a position of power now, because, like, her and Papa Asedu and like you are now currency for the school. Like they're gonna enjoy bigging you up when you go forward and do this
Yeah.
incredible show and do that incredible show. And so you know, on the other, like they have to now listen to you. Like that
Yeah.
is part of the contract that we've negotiated with each other. Like you have to, you can't deny me and you can't silence me. Otherwise, like yeah, it will just get to the point where people stop attending, and you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing British art a disservice, because there are insanely talented actors whose work you won't get to nurture,
Hmm.
and that is a huge shame, and I'm committed to not let that happen. And so yeah, man, drama school's got to change, and it starts for me, not for everyone, because people have been doing it long before I have, but it starts for me with a conversation with Ola,
Yeah.
the people, who is new, by the way, I should add. Like
Yeah.
she's just taken over, but and she's inherited a lot of problems, and she at the minute seems willing to listen and willing to change stuff at the school, and so yeah, I'm very interested in having that conversation with her. Hopefully it bears fruit, and hopefully it's a productive one, because there's been countless conversations had. Like I've spoken to
Yeah.
Papa so many times, and he's been like, yeah, we've had this meeting, we've had that meeting, you know, Faith has had this meeting, Fode's had this meeting. So many people have had meetings with Guildhall, and we're still here talking about it. And it will take time. I'm aware of that. But in the meantime, like the time it takes for you to get your shit together, like we're not going to continue to traumatize young black students and call
There's
it drama
a
training.
there's that amazing video of James Baldwin
Hmm.
being like, "How much time do you need?
Yeah, yeah.
You've had my time. You've had my parents' time. You're not having my
Yeah,
daughter's time as well.
yeah,
How much
yeah,
time do you need? Catch up."
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um,
And yeah, do it quickly.
and
Radical change is what we
I
need.
would urge any, like, because I'm not an acting alumni, I'm not invited to your lovely Zoom meeting. But I would urge any white actors who listen. When's the Zoom meeting?
I think it's on the 29th. Oh, so if anybody is listening who is a Guildhall alumni of any color, I think,
Yes.
yeah, any color,
Yeah.
just get on the. Apparently, it was meant to be broadcasted and sent to everyone, and for some reason, I think because of like the data protection stuff, like it maybe hasn't reached everyone, and so we've been urged to share it, and we've been urged to
Yes.
let people know that this thing is happening. And so let me get the actual date. Sorry, it's going to freeze for a second.
It'll be in the. I'll put it in the description of this video and this podcast as well.
Yeah, definitely. But it is also the Monday, 29th of June at 6 p.m. And you have to RSVP to the email. So like, get someone to send you the email.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just email Guildhall and be like, you want to attend the Zoom meeting, and be there,
Yeah.
and
The
voice your
example
stuff.
I would give is like, you all see it when we kind of judge a debate in the House of Commons by how many MPs come and are there to even hear the debate, never mind be part of it. Like,
Yeah,
and the weight of, let's crash that Zoom call. Like, let's
yeah,
put
yeah, 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 yeah.
like as many, like the weight of people and numbers in that Zoom call will make such a difference to how seriously the school
It's
takes it.
taken.
They will
Yeah,
feel
and how
overwhelmed by
high
it.
a priority is it?
You
Yeah,
know what
and
I mean?
also if you feel like you know you don't have anything to add, or it's not an issue that involves you and you want to stay out of the way, or blah 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 blah, just be there. Just
Be
be
there and
there and just
listen.
listen.
That's great.
Just honestly, just go and turn up, because you're right. Like it will be deemed more severe, and it will be made a high priority if people turn up. And this is part of it. This is part of pulling up. If you're an ally, and you know, like pull up. Just be there. Just be there and be present. And if you don't have anything to say, just listen and learn and support.
and
And
then and then amplify those lessons that you learn outside when you can. I think there's a worry with people where they don't want to post things that so many other people have posted, and it's just like, that helps. Sometimes you see an
just do it.
article get posted 3 times before you go, oh fuck, 3 people have posted that, I should read that. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
share
yeah,
the stuff that you've already seen shared. Like, it all
yeah,
adds this collective wave of
yeah.
consciousness and awareness
Just
that.
yeah, just do it, man. Like it. Like I'm really tired of people justifying like their justifying their silence and justifying their want for stuff to just get back to normal. It won't,
No,
and it shouldn't.
and
And
we
so
don't
just
want it to get back to normal. This is the
yeah,
thing. I
we
saw
should be
someone
on the same page. We should
I
be on the
saw
same page
someone
with this.
tweet being like, if the pandemic has shown anything, it's shown that things can change drastically very, very quickly. So let's
Yeah,
use that as an example and
yeah,
change this. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, 100%, 100%.
For sure.
Victoria, battery's
Mate,
dying, but I also have to like plug my headphones into the same place that I would
no,
charge it
don't
from.
worry. I think I'm gonna say thank you so much for coming on, and then we'll have a little chat afterwards. But mate,
Oh
I
yeah, definitely.
fucking really appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna hit
No, it's
stop
cool,
record,
man.
and then we can.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me.
That's all right. And that was the episode with Toheeb. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you maybe enjoyed's the wrong word, but I really enjoy thinking. I think people need to get more on board with that, just being challenged and listening and discussing things in depth. So I hope you found it valuable. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. And if you are a Guildhall alum, like we said, jump on the Zoom call on the 29th of June. I will put that in the description of this. And if you're not a Guildhall person on any drama schools, I would urge you just to kind of further this conversation within your own drama school communities and acting communities, and for people that are entirely outside of this, maybe apply that to your own field and your own workplace, and get those conversations moving, because the thing with systemic and internalized racism is that the conversations will help erode some of those prejudices within us. So hopefully we can further the conversation through big lovely conversations like I just had with Toheeb. Like I said, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Twitter's that Vittorio, in case there's any other Vittorios you're interested in. Instagram's Vittorio Angelone. And if you enjoyed, subscribe to this podcast and this YouTube channel for all sorts of stuff. And give us a 5-star review. That makes such a difference. It literally only takes like 30 seconds. Like you can give it some time. Drop us a 5-star if you got some value from it, and send me a message with your thoughts. I'm always looking to kind of improve and make things better, so I would love your feedback. What else? I think that's probably it. Patreon.com/Vittorio Angelone if you would like to support my content machine with money. That would be nice. As little as £1 a month. That would be good if you can. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you check out some other episodes of the Good Guy podcast. And up the fucking good guys. Have a good one, folks.